Welcome back, Mastercrafted gaming fans. I'm not Carl Preslinski. I'm Steve Hildrew. You might know me from Countercharge or maybe from the weekly community updates. But I'm here as living proof that if you whinge to Carl for long enough, he'll pretty much let you do anything. And he's let me do the Ratkin preview for the Uncharted Empires book. Yay, Ratkin! This is going to be cool. The first unit I want to talk to you about is Warriors. Now, why Warriors? Why am I showing you Warriors? Practically the most boring unit in Rats. Well, one is to show that they're still there. They're still super cheap, super viable, super reliable kind of chaff wall type unit, which is what we're used to in playing in Rats. But there's a couple of things I want you to notice on this profile. One is they've got the expendable keyword. Hold that in your head because I'm going to talk to you about that later. The second is Plague Pots. Plague Pots is the army special rule for Rats, and it allows you to give them stealthy and ensnare for a turn once per game. So that, for 15 points upgrade, is pretty legit. I think you can have these as a wall in front, you can use them to ensnare people, you can hold them up while you start ringing your hammers. That's a great unit. The second unit I want to talk to you about is Vermintide. Now, Vermintide were always a choice in 2nd edition between do I use slaves, do I use Vermintide? I tended to go on the slave side, but you'll notice there's a new keyword here, vermin, and that's really important. One, Vermintide now come in legions, which is super legit. They're incredibly cheap and you get this huge wall of nerve with a huge amount of attacks. 36 attacks is pretty great. Okay, they're hitting on 5s, but you get enough of the units of Vermintide on the board, you can have real swarm approach. But vermin as a keyword is incredibly important. And I'm going to skip immediately on to the next unit to show you why, the Mutant Rat Fiend. Now, I think the Mutant Rat Fiend was a really underused unit in version 2. For good reasons, there were just better stuff in the army to use, so we could never really fit them in. I think Mutant Rat Fiends have got a really good place in version 3 armies now. So let's take a look at their rules. First off, dash 18 nerve. That's fantastic. And they're hitting on 3s. They're basically a mobile dragon without fly. But they have Radiance of Life for vermin only, and they have the vermin keyword. That means that your Mutant Rat Fiend is healing itself and all of the Vermintide around it at the end of its move every turn. It's also got Regeneration 5+, it's Crushing 2, it's Vicious in melee, it's got Strider, it's Speed 7. This is a beast. I genuinely think now that with melee 3, it's one of the most efficient giants in the game. Okay, it's defense 4, and I get that actually might be a little bit underwhelming, but think about this. It's dash 18, and it heals itself and regens every single turn. They're going to be tough to get rid of. Sticking with the vermin theme, I want to show you one of the most amazing units that's available in version 3. I think this is legit amazing. So it's one of the vermin models that you can buy now and construct. You can bring it straight into your army, and it's the Tangle. It's a Titan, but it's only height 3, okay? So that's fine because that's kind of appropriate for the model size. It's got a bunch of rules. It's got regen 6, it's vicious, it's only speed 5. However, its main use is in its spellcasting abilities as well as the Aura of Fury. Aura of Fury on its own I think is just amazing. One of the best auras you can possibly have. Particularly when you've got big horde armies where you can get really jammed up by having units that are suddenly wavered, right? Aura of Fury, incredible. So everything within 6 inches gets Fury. Plus it comes with Fireball 10. Banechant 1, Weakness 1, and Mind Fog 1. Now those sound a little bit weak on their own, but for each unit of vermin or core infantry regiment or horde within 6 inches of that unit, you increase by 1 dice to a maximum of 3. So effectively, if you're playing correctly, you've got on tap, Banechant 4, Weakness 4, Mind Fog 4, and Fireball 13. That is fantastic. I can see a real reason to have this in your army right at the core of your kind of main melee block. It's got a dash 14 nerve so it can't be wavered. It's inspiring. This unit is amazing. So remember earlier I talked to you about expendable and I said remember expendable. So we had Vermintide were expendable and we had Warriors were expendable. What's the use of that? Well, let's take a look at the Broodmother. So the Broodmother is another vermin model that you can buy now. You can just port into your army. It's a large infantry hero and it has unit strength. So basically it's like an ogre hero. I think that's new to the Ratkin list and quite crucial when you're moving around kind of quite expendable units and you need a bit more unit strength on the field. So they come automatically with Inspiring, with Drain Life 5, and they come with Crushing Strength 1, their Speed 6, their Height 3, so they can see over all of your other troops. They also have Radiance of Life, which is really cool. So if you happen to have units that aren't Vermintide and your Mutant Rat Fiends are too far away for their Radiance of Life, you've got your Broodmother in the centre healing up the rest of your troops. But The best thing about this is your drain life can be targeted at your own troops if they've got the expendable keyword, and that doubles the amount of dice you're hitting with. So you can now grind really effectively with rats because you can have your huge chunks of infantry and you can have your Broodmothers behind that's just sucking life out of expendable units and healing up the units who really want to be doing the work. Plus you've got your Mutant Rat Fiends on the end, chucking in their damage and healing themselves up. You've got an Aura of Fury from your Tangle. Can you imagine? I think this is going to be super fun to play. Challenging, but really fun. Alright, next up I'm going to talk to you about Abyssal Dwarf Slave theme. So maybe you've got some Skaven miniatures or some Vermin miniatures that you're using as Ratkin, and you've got some Abyssal Dwarves and you want to combine the two. I think this is a really nice theme list to allow you to do that. So the first unit I want to talk to you about is Wretches, Slave Wretches. Now these might seem a little bit familiar to you in the form of the old Tunnel Slaves. Slave Wretches is something different, and you'll notice the special ability here, the Last Breath. This is so cool, and I'm really jealous as a Ratkin player that the Abyssal Dwarf list gets this and the Ratkins don't. So you know the Crystal Pendant of Retribution? This is what this is, except it just comes for 15 points. 15 points to be added to this kind of unit. So any unit that is engaged with your unit when it dies suffers 2d3 of piercing 2 damage, which they then have to resolve on their own troops. That is unbelievable. So if you can flood the board with your slaves, they're not going to be able to avoid being blown up by them, and then you can hammer in with your Abyssal Dwarf units afterwards. That's just gross, because Abyssal Dwarfs needed to be more deadly. So, if you're used to playing Abyssal Dwarfs, you will know that the main thing about them is that they are slow. They're dwarves, that's the point. This gives you a really cool way to play a faster based Abyssal Dwarf list by using your slaves to push forwards. There's some really nice fluff about how this all happened and some of the special characters, which we'll get into in a little bit. So the first thing to note is that not all of your Abyssal Dwarf units are going to be usable. This is a far more specialised list, which really plays to the strength of having the Ratkin units along. If you could just bring tons of, golems and a Hellfane and all that kind of stuff, you're kind of like, why would I bother taking Ratkin units instead? So the idea of this, I think, is that you can use your Ratkin to be your first wave to allow your really punchy Abyssal Dwarf units to come up behind, set up your charges, and then deliver. So you can take Ratkin Warriors, just like before, and they're still expendable. They're exactly the same. This is a really cool addition because you kind of lack a little bit of this kind of faster chaff in the Abyssal Dwarf list. You've got your Slave Orcs, I get it, but they're speed 5. These guys are speed 6, and they are cheap as chips as normal. You've also got your Vermintide. You can't have them in legions like you can in the Ratkin list, but you can still have this wild charge, fast moving, pretty hard hitting. I know it's hitting on 5s, but it's got enough attacks to really make a difference. Then you can add some of the really cool stuff that Abyssal Dwarfs just haven't had. So you can take the Tunnel Runners. Now, Tunnel Runners were a really difficult unit to get to grips with in version 2. They didn't quite hit hard enough, they didn't quite make the difference they wanted. I think for an Abyssal Dwarf army, having a speed 8 cavalry with Thunderous 1, Crushing 1, 24 attacks, sounds a little bit like Brock Riders, but not quite as absolutely devastating. I think these are a really great addition to the Abyssal Dwarf list. So if you need a kind of a punchy monster-style unit to take in your Abyssal Dwarf list, you don't think you can't take all of the options that are in Abyssal Dwarves that might seem similar to this but more pricey. You can bring the Death Engine Impaler upgrade in your Abyssal Dwarf Slave list. I think this is a great unit. It's dash 16, so it's unwaverable. It's D6 plus 7. It's defense 5. It's vicious. It's a properly punchy unit. It's really not that pricey, and you can bring it as one of your slave units. Plus, it's a monster, so it uses that specific unlock and it's height 5, which differentiates it from Titans. So you can hide it behind certain parts of scene that you can't with other Titans. I think that's a more varied use for a unit like this. Last but not least, there's the special character you can take in your Abyssal Dwarf Slave units, Golek's Skinflayer, which just sounds lovely, eh? So there's some nice fluff associated with him, and he's a pretty beefy character. He's got Dread, he's got Rallying 2 for your slaves only, he's nimble, he comes on a chariot, and he's a dash 16 for 200 points, and he's very inspiring for slaves only. So you can see how this slave list is kind of going to work. You're going to add these really fast, punchy units to your Abyssal Dwarf list. You're going to lose some of your Abyssal Dwarf kind of standard take along as your kind of your punchy, like your golems or something like that. But instead of that, you've got a nice fast punchy wave you can bring in forward. You can rally them, you can inspire them. They then blow up in your enemy's face, and then you come and decimate them with everything you've got left. Just gross. Anyway, that's it from me. I hope you enjoyed it. I'm not Kyle, so I can't quite do it as well as him. I haven't got the beard for it. I think the beard gives him power. But I hope you like these previews. There's not long till the book comes out. I cannot wait to get stuck into these new units. We'll see you on the other side.